In the river-kissed town of Abule Egba, they say a woman's tongue once burned down a family faster than any fire. She never struck a match, she never raised a feast. But by the time the sun set on that Saturday evening, her words had done what no enemy could, destroying trust, shattering reputations, and turning neighbor against neighbor. Her name was Mrs. Tolulope Bakari, and this is the story of how she learned that some silences are louder than screams. Abule Egba was never quiet. The roads were narrow, but the noise was wide. Conductors shouted from rusty buses. Market women argued over tomatoes. Children chased tires through muddy streets, and gossip moved faster than all of them combined. At the center of it all sat Mama Tolulope's kiosk, a tiny blue wooden shop squeezed between a barbing salon and a POS stand. She sold sugar, salt, Maggi cubes, peak milk, matches, sachet water, and biscuits hanging from strings like decorations. But people didn't come there only to buy provisions. They came for information. If somebody's husband came home late, Mama Tolulope knew. If a landlord was fighting tenants, she knew. If a young girl suddenly started wearing expensive wigs, Mama Tolulope had the full story before sunset. People laughed and called her Radio Bakari, and truthfully, she enjoyed it. She loved the way people leaned closer when she spoke. She loved the gasps, the whispers, the feeling that everyone needed her voice to know what was happening in the community. Her husband, Mr. Kayode Bakari, was nothing like her. Kayode was a calm electrician who spent most of his days repairing faulty wires and generators. While Tolulope's voice filled every corner, Kayode preferred silence. Every evening after work, he would sit outside with a plastic cup of tea while his wife narrated the entire neighborhood's problems like a news reporter. Sometimes he would smile and shake his head. Mama Tobi, he would say softly, "Not every thought needs a voice." Tolulope would laugh loudly. If I don't talk, how will people know what is happening? Kayode would sip his tea before answering. Sometimes silence is the message, but she never listened. One hot afternoon, as sweat rolled down people's faces like rainwater, a woman named Madame Shade hurried into the kiosk. Her face looked troubled, and she kept checking over her shoulder nervously. "Mama Tolulope," she whispered, "I want to tell you something, but please, don't repeat it." Tolulope immediately leaned forward. Madame Shade explained that the Akinwale's family business was collapsing. Their once successful rice shop had fallen into heavy debt, and they were close to losing everything because they couldn't pay their cooperative loan anymore. "Please keep it between us," Madame Shade begged. "They are trying their best to recover quietly." Tolulope placed her hand on her chest dramatically. "Ha! Am I a child? Your secret is safe with me." But Secret and Tolulope had never lived peacefully together. That evening, one customer came to buy peak milk. Tolulope whispered it to her. Another woman came for sugar. She whispered it again. By nightfall, the story had traveled from one compound to another like wildfire during Harmattan, except now it was no longer the truth. Some people said the Akinwales were thieves. Others claimed they were running away from debt collectors. Someone even said their children had been sent home from school because they were completely broke. The gossip grew legs. By Monday morning, customers stopped entering the Akinwale's shop. Suppliers refused to give them goods on credit. Even neighbors who once greeted them warmly now avoided eye contact. Their eldest daughter stopped attending church because people kept whispering whenever she walked past. Inside their house, silence replaced laughter. And in the middle of it all sat Mama Tolulope, still talking. Until the day Mrs. Akinwale came to her kiosk. The woman looked tired. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "What did we do to you?" she asked quietly. Tolulope froze. "My children cannot even walk outside peacefully anymore. Everybody looks at us like criminals." For the first time in many years, Tolulope had no words. That night, Kayode found his wife unusually silent. "She came to see me today," Tolulope whispered. Kayode nodded slowly. "You are not a bad person, Tolulope." She looked at him hopefully. "But you have been careless with people's pain." His words pierced deeper than insults. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Whenever Tolulope entered the conversation, people suddenly remembered somewhere else they needed to be. Women stopped sharing personal matters with her. Even children mocked her quietly, pretending to broadcast fake news whenever she passed. For the first time, the woman who loved noise began to fear silence. Her kiosk became emptier, lonelier. And every night, she replayed Mrs. Akinwale's tearful face in her mind. Then came the flood. It started with heavy rain one Friday evening, the kind that shook zinc roofs and turned roads into rivers within minutes. Most people stayed indoors, thinking it would soon stop. But the water kept rising. Drainages overflowed. Cars disappeared under muddy water. Children screamed as currents rushed through compounds. Tolulope stepped outside and saw disaster unfolding. An old woman was trapped near the junction. 2 children were crying on a balcony. The flood was moving dangerously fast toward the lower part of the community. Without thinking, Tolulope grabbed a megaphone from a nearby church. For the first time in her life, she used her loud voice not for gossip, but for rescue. "Everybody move to the school building!" she shouted through the rain. "Carry your children! Leave your properties!" She ran through flooded streets, warning people house by house. "Wake up! The water is rising!" Her voice echoed across Abule Egba all night long. Kayode watched proudly as his wife helped carry children, guided elderly people through water, and comforted frightened neighbors. By morning, many families admitted they would not have escaped on time if not for Mama Tolulope's warnings. The same mouth that once scattered a family had now saved an entire community. Days later, when the flood waters disappeared, the community elders gathered under the big almond tree near the mosque. One of them stood up and looked at Tolulope carefully. "In this town," he said, "we once called you Radio Bakare because your words cause confusion." The crowd murmured softly. "But today," he continued, "we call you Iyalero, the woman who understands the weight of words." Tears filled Tolulope's eyes. From that day forward, people noticed something different about her. When customers came to her kiosk with gossip, she simply smiled and changed the topic. When others mocked struggling neighbors, she defended them. And sometimes, she would sit quietly outside beside Kayode in the evening breeze, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood without adding her own voice to the noise. Because she had finally learned what life had been trying to teach her all along. Words are like seeds. Once planted, they grow, whether into flowers or destruction. And sometimes, the wisest thing a person can say is nothing at all. This has been Plot Perfect Studio. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, and bring someone who needs to hear it. I will see you next time.